Yes, I realized that this sounds extremely wild, considering that Notch is the man who gave us a wonderful game, Minicraft. This game has become a phenomenon among game dev. Right now, Minicraft is one of the best-selling games in history. Okay, Minicraft is also a Notch game, but it was created in just few hours. Of course, I'm talking about Minecraft. But there are some really wild things going on with Notch. He literally announced a spiritual successor to Minecraft, which on internet for some reason has already been labeled Minecraft 2. Let's go to the bottom of this together. I don't want to tell you the whole story of Notch's formation, I'll tell you about it some other time. You all know that in 2014 Microsoft bought Minecraft from Notch for $2 billion, although they could easily buy it on the official website for $30. The amount of the deal is extremely large. It is really fabulous money. Besides Microsoft, Activision Blizzard tried to buy the game, eventually Minecraft would have fallen into Microsoft's hands anyway, and Electronic Arts. But I'm afraid to imagine what would have happened to the game. I think, at the very least, we would have had to buy every new update, and the Steam purchase page would be extremely similar to that of The Sims 4. Notch became a billionaire by selling the game, but he didn't become one of the richest people on the planet anyway. Of course, after that many friends turned against him, but apparently he didn't care at the time. Although in the time of 2025 his fortune was down to $1.2 billion. Where he spent half of it in 11 years is a mystery. A lot of time has passed since that moment. He was doing a lot of things. We'll talk about today too. Marcus was not distinguished by any special behavior on the internet. Because of his, let's say, aggressive statements in his direction to the minority and politics, Microsoft didn't even invite him to the celebration of the 10th anniversary of the game. What to say about the 15th anniversary of the game? On January 1st, 2025, quite unexpectedly, I think for everyone, Notch wrote a huge post on Twitter and attached a poll. In it, he asked for help from his audience. Marcus doesn't know where he should move in the development of his new game, towards traditional roguelike, for example, Atom, NetHack, mixed with the turn-based dungeon crawler, for example, Legend of Grimrock 2 or Eye of the Beholder, or towards Minecraft. Overall, this is a pretty normal poll. A lot of new games use all sorts of techniques, ideas or mechanics from other old games. The problem is that Minecraft and the games Notch mentioned are essentially radically different games. I'm not talking about the story, just the mechanics and goals. Sandbox and roguelike are different genres of games. The first option, Minecraft 2, is the choice of a younger audience, but the second option, Uncruising Potion, is more niche and interesting to fans of retro games. In other words, Notch already knew the outcome of the vote when he created such a poll. It's the same as giving a hungry person a choice between food and brick. I think his audience consists of 90% of people who know Notch from Minecraft, so we should probably dig a little deeper. Let's be honest, Notch is a great man, he created a great game, but for the most part he was very lucky. If you look back over the years, you can see that Marcus took two successful ideas, combined them and created something new. Without the game's fans and advice from community of programmers like him, nothing much would have gotten done. Minecraft would have been just another Notch game that would have faded into the margins of history. Yes, Notch created a lot of games, but they didn't even come close to the success of Minecraft, although there were some pretty interesting games. For example, Minicraft. This 2D top-down view game was created in 48 hours for Ludum Dare 22 game programming competition in 2011. The gameplay was partially similar to Minecraft. The player had to collect resources, craft tools, mine ore, chop trees, plant wheat, and the main enemies in the game were zombies and slimes. Of course, as in other games, in this one there was also a boss, an evil player wizard. The player appeared on the island with borders around the map. The game even had overworld and cave world biomes. Of the special features, the player had energy and health. Energy was used from all action and regenerate instantly, while health was only regenerated by food. I think there is no need to tell a lot about the game. I can make a separate video on this topic, if you're interested. Moreover, the game is being developed now, only by other guys, and the game is completely free. So that's what I'm getting at. Notch, after the success of the game, decided that it was worth creating a direct successor, Minitail. Again, he announced the sequel on his Twitter, even managed to show the main screen. All will be nothing, but the game was not supposed to be a direct sequel, but rather just a paid and finalized version of Minicraft. It became clear by Notch's plan fans, which he announced on his Twitter. But as it often happens with Notch, something went wrong, and the development didn't go further than creating the main menu. At that time, a game called Scrolls was already in development, but due to legal issues and a lawsuit from Bethesda, the game had to be renamed Caller's Bane. It is a tactical role-playing game that has elements from collectible card games and board games. It was developed by Notch and his friend Jacob Porser, co-founder of Mojang Studios at the time. The game went through several levels of testing and was even released to the public. The price was quite humble, only €5, due to which the game had a low entry threshold. The idea of the game is quite simple. Players make their decks from various scrolls that represent units, spells and upgrades. The goal of the game is to destroy 3 to 5 enemy idols on the field. Players could create unique decks by using different scrolls from different factions, which had their own features. Of course, the game had a ranking system and even ranked matchmaking, but the whole focus was on player interaction, tournaments, sharing cards and duos. Unfortunately, the game just couldn't survive due to the large competition of more popular games like Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering Arena. Though Notch left Mojang in 2014, the game continued to be supported until 2018. The game's popularity began to fade. It was made free to play and the servers were shut down. So in fact, during Notch's reign, Mojang officially released only 2 games. Yes, there was of course the game Cobalt, but it was in early access and it was created by another studio, Oxi Game, handed by Jens Bergensten. That is, in fact, Notch did not develop it, and the official release took place only in 2016. By the way, the game can still be purchased on Steam. Yes, we have another game that Notch never released. Its name is 10 to the Sea. It was supposed to be a multiplayer sandbox game in an open world space setting. The player will get a lot of different activities: space travel, combat, mining minerals, collecting trophies, landing on different planets and trade. What is important was even the possibility of building your own spaceship. The game was planned to be released on the same principle as Minecraft. First alpha version, then almost transitioned to the beta version, and at the end the release. A 3D graphic designer, Jonathan Pulio, was even hired for the game, and the graphical style of the game was described as pixel graphics what connects to 3-dimensional graphics. Development started in 2012, and the community was excited. People liked the developer's statement and the way the game was presented in general. In 2013, Notch announced they stopped development. Again, because the public had inflated expectations. He was afraid that the game would fail and not be a success. From this, we can see once again how insecure Notch was. The game really could have come out. Daniel Rosenfeld, better known to you as C418, was already writing the soundtrack of the game. He even released 2 finished tracks in his Bandcamp page. Players were extremely upset and some fans decided to revive the project. They started their own development of the game called Project Thrilic. As far as I know, the game is still being developed to this day. Although on January 3rd, 2024, Notch tweeted asking if he still had the rights to the game or if with the Mojang purchase they all went to Microsoft. So what do we have for 2014? Notch created 2 games. One won a lot of awards and led him to success, and the second one failed, to say the least. The development of the third one was simply cancelled. Due to the fact that Notch started to be surrounded by quite talented developers like the same Jens Bergensten, the game started to become more and more popular and attract more players. Notch's every action was followed by a huge community, and it became incredibly difficult to listen to every piece of advice from fans, as he had done before. He started to be pressured by fans, judged for his statements, and most importantly for any decision related to Minecraft. The Cape incident was very telling. A guy with the nickname Mikli helped Notch with the idea of adding pigment to the game. Notch decided to thank him for that. Mikli didn't think long, created a bacon cape and asked Notch to add him this cape as a thank you. Notch did so, but the rest of the fans started demanding him to give them unique capes too. What was Marcus' response to this? Did he lay siege to the players in some way? No, he just removed the cape from Mikli. Simple as that. Back to the topic of fleeting. In 2014, Notch, along with Jacob Porser, created a new gaming company called Rubberbrain AB. This company has had about 4 people, including Marcus and Jacob, in the entire time. What's also funny is that this game studio hasn't released a single game in all the time. But for the year 2021, it somehow miraculously spent $5.5 million. So there was something behind the scenes, but unfortunately, no one told us about it for many years. Until 2024. After all, this year he reformed his old studio. Marcus gave it the name BitShift Entertainment and even announced his new game, Levers and Chests. It was positioned as a third-person RPG with dungeon crawl elements, combining classic features of the genre, such as procedural level generation and permanent character death. The game's mechanics were exactly from old retro games. They included cursed items and absurdly broken mechanics, offering players challenging and unpredictable gameplay typical of classic roguelikes. What What about the visual style? Well, here it's basically self-explanatory. The game uses voxel-based graphics, which is just reminiscent of the Minecraft aesthetic. Notch has started sharing the stages of the development on his Twitter. In early version of the game, you could see models from Voxel Do mod and textures from the Eye of the Beholder 2, The Legend of Dark Moon. That is exactly the games that he was inspired by to create this game, and about which he spoke in his post, where he asked for votes for further development of the game. Later he did show off the game characters, and they were created entirely from voxel graphics. The game looks interesting, but it has a lot of mechanics that new players may have a hard time understanding. Most likely Notch really wanted to create not just a narrowly focused game, but an appropriate game, which in theory can be played by a huge audience of players, including those who love Minecraft. It's unlikely that Notch has the direct intention to create a game that can make money. He has plenty of it already. Most likely he wants to go back to the old days of Minecraft development, when he consulted with players, asked for their help, and shared what he had already created. Moreover, he has repeatedly stated that he is extremely lonely. With so much money, watching the sunset in his $70 billion villa, partying with the popular stars, he feels like the loneliest person in the world. But why did Notch in general decided to outright admit that he wants to create Minecraft 2? The thing is that this year he resolved not to lie to himself and everyone around him. That is, with this he wanted to declare that he really regrets his decision and wants to return. But clearly the bridges have been burned for a long time. Things went so far that at one point he even wrote that he had a small penis, which was probably unnecessary to tell him about. But like I said, Marcus has never been known for being correct on the internet. So why are the news publishers and portals shouting about Notch creating Minecraft 2? The first reason is to, of course, attract attention. Every news media wants to get as many views as possible and sell more expensive advertising. The second is that Notch himself has labeled this game that way. He has stated that he has essentially announced Minecraft 2. His main goal is not to create an actual second part, but only a spiritual successor. He in no way wants to hurt Mojang Studios with this action. I also intended to do this in a way that in no way tried to sneakily infringe on the incredible work the Mojang team is doing and the Microsoft is successfully doing the Microsoft shitification about. That's the official term. I didn't make that up. Legally he can't call his game that either. It's a trademark that belongs only to Microsoft and no one else. I don't think telling you that Mojang and Microsoft are planning to create Minecraft 2 with Notch is a good idea either. It's silly considering Marcus wasn't even called to his game's birthday party. But Notch has not signed a non-competition clause, which means he has no problem creating a full-fledged clone of Minecraft, again without violating the general principles of copyright law. It is not clear whether this will be a completely new game or still some improvement of the levers and chests. Very hard to say anything yet. From a marketing point of view, he did the right thing. He attracted a lot of new audience and reminded the old ones about himself. So don't assume that this is a sequel to Minecraft or God forbid Minecraft 2. It will be something in spirit of Minecraft, but whether Marcus will be able to gather the same team as he did when developing Minecraft, we have yet to find out. I hope Notch knows what he's doing, and this isn't the ramblings of a crazy person. He is a pretty talented developer. Maybe he just lacks support from his nearest and dearest, or even a bit of courage. Marcus, by the way, said that the closed beta test will start at the end of the year. Let's keep an eye on the development and hopefully something good will come out. What do you think about it? Write in the comments. While you're waiting for the new video to come out, check out these ones. They are also very interesting. Subscribe to this channel, put your likes and click on the bell. We'll hear from you again as we discover Minecraft 2 in a new way.